The rangers of Whispering Pines National Park call it the Quiet Zone Area 17, where the towering pines grow so dense they swallow sound. The Sutton family didn't know this when they pitched their yellow tent there last April. David, Sarah, 7-year-old Emma, 3-year-old Tyler, and baby Lily. They were smiling in their last photo. A checkered blanket spread beneath them, the forest still and watchful behind. 7 months later, Park Ranger Michael Reed stood in that same clearing, now ringed with police tape, staring at a child's drawing pinned to a tree. 5 stick figures. 4 crossed out in angry red crayon, 1 still standing. And somewhere in the forest, someone was laughing. Before we continue, I'm curious, what time is it right now where you're watching? And are you somewhere cozy or out and about? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to our channel. It truly makes my day when you do. Park Ranger Michael Reed squinted against the April sunshine as the silver SUV pulled into the Whispering Pines Visitor Center. Another family seeking wilderness therapy. He'd seen it countless times in his 15 years of service. The man who stepped out wore expensive hiking boots that had never touched dirt. "David Sutton," he said, extending his hand. "We have a reservation for Area 17. Michael's smile faltered. "Area 17? That's pretty isolated. Most families with young kids prefer the main campground." "We need isolated," David said, his voice tight. Behind him, a woman with tired eyes unbuckled a car seat. A baby whimpered. A young boy pressed his face against the window, while a girl with pigtails kicked stones in the parking lot. "Sarah," David called. "Bring the site printout." The woman juggled the baby to one arm and handed over a folded paper. "We researched thoroughly," she said with a forced smile. "Area 17 has that rock formation the kids want to see. The Needle, a 50-foot stone spire rising from a circular formation of boulders. Beautiful but strange. The rangers called the surrounding valley the Quiet Zone because sounds behaved oddly there, sometimes disappeared entirely, sometimes echoed when they shouldn't. Michael should have warned them. That's what haunted him later. He should have mentioned the acoustic anomalies, the way hikers sometimes reported hearing voices where none existed. But after last summer's incident with the lost hikers, when his warnings about storm conditions had been dismissed as overreaction, he'd become cautious about alarming visitors unnecessarily. "Just stay on marked trails," he said, instead stamping their permit. "Cell service is spotty out there." "That's the point." David's laugh didn't reach his eyes. No emails, no calls from headhunters, just family reconnection. As he watched them drive toward the trailhead, Michael noted the tension in Sarah's shoulders, the way David's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. A family trying to fix something broken. The little boy, Tyler, turned to wave goodbye through the rear window. Something about his solemn expression sent a chill down Michael's spine. That night, writing his daily report, Michael noted the Sutton family's arrival. 5 days, 4 nights in Area 17. Expected departure Tuesday, April 16th. He couldn't have known they would never check out. He couldn't have known that 7 months later, he would stand in their abandoned campsite, staring at the scattered remains of their lives, wondering which of them had screamed loudest before the forest swallowed them whole. "We've got another missing hiker report," Ranger Supervisor Dawson said, dropping a file on Michael's desk 7 months later. "Third one this month." Michael flipped through the paperwork. Where were they last seen? Near Area 17. Claimed they saw a child watching them from behind trees. Dawson frowned. Probably just a deer. But check it out anyway, and maybe swing by that old Sutton campsite while you're there. Update the case file with any weather damage. The Sutton case. The file grew dusty on Dawson's desk, but it lived behind Michael's eyelids every night. The family that vanished without a trace in April. The search that yielded nothing but a single child's sock. The investigation eventually shelved as another tragic wilderness mystery. No bodies, No closure. Just questions. Michael parked at the trailhead and hiked the 3 miles to Area 17. November had stripped the deciduous trees bare, but the pines stood tall and watchful, unchanging sentinels. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees since morning. Winter approaching. He smelled the campsite before he saw it, a musty, abandoned scent that didn't belong in the fresh forest air. Rounding the bend, he stopped cold. The yellow tent still stood. Not as it had been pitched, not properly, but slashed and partially collapsed, its fabric gray with months of weather exposure. Equipment lay scattered in bizarre patterns, cooking utensils arranged in perfect circles, sleeping bags unzipped and spread like fallen angels in the dirt. This wasn't weather damage. Someone had been here recently. "Hello," Michael called, his hand moving to his sidearm. "Park ranger. Anyone here?" Only the whisper of wind through pines answered him. He approached slowly, cataloging details with growing horror. The tent had been slashed from the inside. The family's belongings hadn't simply been abandoned. They'd been organized into strange patterns that made his skin crawl. A child's notebook lay open on a rock, its pages filled with increasingly frantic crayon drawings. Happy family pictures gave way to dark scribbles and stick figures with exaggerated screaming mouths. Pinned to a nearby pine with a kitchen knife was a single drawing, 5 stick figures representing the Sutton family. 4 were crossed out with angry red crayon. 1, the smallest, remained unmarked. "Jesus," Michael whispered, documenting everything with his camera. He found the campfire ring cold and dead, but surrounded by a circle of pine cones pointing inward like arrows. Beyond it, another circle of rocks. Beyond that, a circle of broken tent stakes. Circles within circles. Michael called it in immediately. "The Sutton campsite has been disturbed. This isn't animal activity or weather damage. Someone's been living here." Within hours, the quiet forest hummed with activity. Police cruisers, forensic technicians, search dogs. Yellow crime scene tape circled Area 17 like a warning. "Their vehicles still in long-term parking," said Detective Laura Simmons, the missing persons specialist assigned to the case. "Untouched for months, according to parking records. No credit card activity since April. No social media posts. It's like they stepped off the edge of the world." "The tent being cut from inside suggests panic," Michael said. "But why stay in the area? Why not hike out for help?" Laura shook her head.
"Family of 5, including a baby. They wouldn't have survived winter without supplies."
"Unless," Michael hesitated. "Unless what?" "Unless not all of them disappeared at once." As darkness approached, the search teams gathered their equipment. Tomorrow would bring a more extensive search. Michael stayed behind, making one final sweep of the perimeter before heading back. The setting sun stretched shadows between trees like reaching fingers. In the distance, the Needle Rock Formation pierced the darkening sky. That's when he heard it, faint but unmistakable. A child's laugh, high and wild, echoing from somewhere deep in the forest. Then nothing but absolute, perfect silence. No wind, no birds, no insects. As if the entire forest was holding its breath. "We need to focus on establishing a timeline," Detective Laura Simmons said the next morning, spreading a map across the hood of her vehicle. A sharp November wind cut through the trees, carrying the scent of snow. The family was scheduled for 5 days. The campsite shows evidence of a much longer stay. Michael nodded. "The ranger logs show David Sutton called our station 3 times during their stay." He flipped through his notes. First call was routine, asking about weather forecasts. Second call, 3 days in, he complained about noise from other campers. "Noise? The nearest campsite is over a mile away." "Exactly." The ranger who took the call thought he meant wildlife. Third call came at 2 a.m. on what should have been their last night. David was agitated, demanding we investigate voices around their campsite. The night ranger logged it as a probable wildlife encounter. Laura frowned. Nobody followed up when they didn't check out? They paid for 2 extra days at the visitor center. After that, Michael sighed. We get dozens of no-shows every week. People change plans. Unless someone reports them missing, which nobody did for 3 weeks. Laura finished. The search teams fanned out across Area 17. The dogs picked up old scents heading in multiple directions, said Officer Ramirez, handling the K9 unit. It's strange, like the family split up. Or were separated, Michael said quietly. The afternoon brought their first significant discovery. A search officer called them to a massive hollow tree approximately 50 yards from the campsite. Found this wedged inside, he said, holding up a waterproof pouch containing a weathered notebook. Sarah Sutton's journal. They gathered in the command tent as Laura carefully opened it, wearing gloves. The first pages showed a hopeful mother's thoughts. April 12th. Finally got away from everything. David's been so stressed since losing his job. The kids need to see their father smile again. This place is beautiful, so quiet and peaceful. Emma loves climbing on the smaller rocks. Tyler keeps talking about forest friends he's going to make. Baby Lily is sleeping better than she has in months. The entries continued normally for several days, then gradually shifted. April 15th, David isn't sleeping. Says he hears voices at night, like whispers just outside the tent. I don't hear anything except the wind. Told him it's just stress working itself out. April 17th. Should have left yesterday. But David insists we stay longer. Says he needs to figure something out about this place. Called the rangers about the voices. They didn't seem concerned. April 20th. The noises are worse at night. David paces around the campsite. Emma's having nightmares. Only Tyler seems fine. He says the forest is telling stories. Sometimes I catch him listening to nothing, head tilted like he's hearing something I can't. April 23rd. David took the flashlight and hiking boots last night. Said he was going to find whoever's watching us. Came back at dawn, soaking wet, saying he'd found a cave behind the rock formation where they hide during the day. The handwriting grew increasingly erratic with each entry. April 26th. David convinced there's someone stalking us. Keeps hearing voices at night. I woke up at 3 a.m. and heard something too, like singing but far away and distorted. Lily won't stop crying when we put her down. Only Tyler can calm her. The final dated entry made Michael's blood run cold. April 29th. David took Emma with him to find the source of the voices. They were supposed to be back by sunset. That was yesterday. Tyler says they went to the listening rocks and that the rocks wanted to keep them. I've called for them all night. No response. No sign of them. The ranger station isn't answering. We need to leave, but I can't carry everything and both children alone. What if David and Emma come back while we're gone? Tyler keeps saying, the forest knows our name now and won't stop singing that strange song. The remainder contained fragments and drawings, increasingly paranoid thoughts, a diagram of the Needle Rock Formation with I changes the sounds, scrawled across it, and finally, a single sentence in large, shaky letters. They're not voices, it's just one voice and it's getting closer. Michael looked up from the journal. His face pale. The needle creates acoustic anomalies. Rangers know about it. Sounds get channeled and distorted. We call it the quiet zone because sometimes sounds disappear entirely, but it can also amplify distant noises in unpredictable ways. Laura stared at him. You're saying natural acoustic phenomena drove this family to madness? I'm saying something about this place affected them psychologically. Area 17 has a history. I've heard stories from other rangers, but nothing officially documented. What kind of stories? Before Michael could answer, a shout came from outside. One of the search teams had returned with a discovery, a child's shoe found near a steep ravine half a mile away. It belonged to Emma Sutton, and the rocks nearby were smeared with what appeared to be dried blood. The storm hit just after dawn the next day, turning the search operation into a muddy struggle against sheeting rain and gusting winds. Michael and Laura took shelter in the command tent, spreading out maps and evidence photos. "We need to understand who these people were," Laura said, opening her laptop. The Suttons weren't just random victims. Something about them, or this place, or both, created the perfect storm. With satellite internet, Laura accessed background files. David Sutton, 42, former executive at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Sarah Sutton, 38, part-time graphic designer. 3 children, Emma, Tyler, and Lily. "What happened with David's job?" Michael asked, remembering the tension he'd observed when they arrived. Laura scrolled through employment records, terminated 4 months before the camping trip. His supervisor's report cites increasingly erratic behavior and unfounded paranoia. She clicked another file. "There's a human resources incident report here. David claimed to hear conversations through the ventilation system, accused colleagues of plotting against him. He was already experiencing auditory hallucinations before coming here. Medical records show he was prescribed antipsychotic medication, but..." Laura frowned at the screen. "Pharmacy records indicate he stopped refilling his prescription 2 weeks before the camping trip." Michael laid out a topographical map of Area 17. The needle isn't just a landmark. It's part of a unique geological formation. The circular arrangement of boulders around it creates a natural amphitheater effect. But it's more than that. The composition of the rocks, the way sound waves bounce and distort. "You're saying David chose this specific location?" His permit request specifically asked for Area 17. Most visitors have never heard of it. It's not in the tourist brochures. He researched this place. Laura's phone rang, the forensics team with preliminary results. Her expression darkened as she listened. "The blood on the rocks near Emma's shoe is confirmed human, matching her DNA from hair found in the tent. Not enough blood loss to indicate fatality, but consistent with a serious injury." She paused. They also found a second site half a mile in the opposite direction, a crude shelter made of branches and tarp. Evidence suggests 2 people stayed there for several days. They found a child's drawing inside. While the storm continued, they split up the investigation. Laura drove back to town to interview the Suttons' neighbors and family members, while Michael explored deeper into the park, seeking any signs of surviving family members. The makeshift shelter was crude but effective, branches lashed together with strips of a torn backpack covered with a blue tarp from the family's camping supplies. Inside, protected from rain, lay a nest of clothing, energy bar wrappers, and a small collection of objects: Emma's hairbrush, Tyler's toy dinosaur, Lily's pacifier, arranged in a careful circle. On the shelter wall, David had used charcoal to draw a crude map of Area 17, with the needle at its center and radiating lines extending outward. Words were scrawled between the lines: "Follows the sound patterns and 3 days until it finds us." Michael photographed everything, then continued searching, pushing deeper into areas rarely visited by hikers. Near a small stream, he found another significant clue. David's phone, water damaged, but with its memory card intact. Back at the command center, the tech team extracted audio files, dozens of recordings David had made of what he called the whispers. The recordings were disturbing, mostly ambient forest sounds, but with odd distortions. Wind through trees that seemed to form patterns like speech. Distant water sounds that rose and fell like conversation. "It's pareidolia," the audio specialist explained. "The human brain is hardwired to find patterns, especially in sounds. We hear voices in random noise because we're programmed to detect speech. Combine that with David's pre-existing condition, the family's isolation, and these weird acoustic anomalies you mentioned. But why did it affect all of them? Michael asked. Sarah's journal shows she eventually heard things too. Folia famille, Laura suggested when she returned. A shared psychosis. Documented cases exist where one person's delusions spread to close family members, especially in isolated environments. Add sleep deprivation, stress from David's job loss, and 3 young children picking up on their parents' fear. The third day of investigation brought clear weather and a dark discovery. Search teams found a steep ravine approximately 1 mile from the campsite in the direction David and Emma had reportedly gone. Climbing equipment allowed Michael and Laura to descend safely. At the bottom, caught in rocks and partially buried by months of falling debris, they found David's backpack, its contents scattered. His wallet, his wedding ring, a tattered map. No human remains, but the evidence suggested at least one person had fallen. The rain would have caused flash flooding through here, Michael explained, pointing to watermarks on the ravine walls. He stopped, unable to say bodies. Any evidence would have been carried downstream. But Emma's shoe was found at the top of the ravine, not the bottom, Laura noted, and the blood evidence up there suggests she was injured before any fall. The fourth day of investigation brought the most disturbing revelation yet. Sarah's intact phone was recovered from inside the tent, its battery long dead. When charged, it yielded a series of video diary entries she'd recorded after David and Emma's disappearance. The progression was heartbreaking. Day 1 after David and Emma disappeared. Sarah, exhausted but coherent, holds baby Lily while recording. If anyone finds this, my husband David and daughter Emma went missing yesterday near the rock formation. I've been calling for them all night. Tyler and I are caring for the baby. We need help. I can't leave to get help because I'm afraid they'll come back while I'm gone. Day 3, Sarah looks significantly more disheveled. Tyler's behaving strangely. He sits by the rocks for hours, listening, says his forest friends, tell him Daddy and Emma aren't coming back. I heard something last night, singing or humming from the direction of the rocks. When I went to look, there was nothing there, but the sound followed me back to the tent. Day 5. Sarah's eyes are sunken, her speech sometimes slurring. The forest knows we're here now. It's learning our names. Tyler understands something I don't. He's teaching Lily to listen too. They both get quiet sometimes, heads tilted the same way, like they're hearing the same thing. When I ask what they hear, Tyler just says, the truth. The final video, recorded on what appeared to be day 7 after David and Emma's disappearance, showed a dramatically changed Sarah. Her hair was wild, eyes darting nervously. She whispered rather than spoke. Tyler wandered off following his friends. I left Lily in the tent to find him. When I got back, someone had been there. Things moved, arranged in circles. I can hear them moving around us at night. Not animals. Something else. Tyler says it's the forest talking, but I know better. It's what took David and Emma, and it's coming for us next. The video ended abruptly with Sarah turning toward a sound off camera, her expression changing from fear to strange recognition. That night, Michael requested permission to conduct an experiment. With specialized acoustic equipment, he and 2 audio engineers returned to the Needle Rock Formation at sunset. The results were more dramatic than expected. The unique configuration of rocks created unpredictable sound channels. A whisper from half a mile away could be amplified to conversational volume at certain positions. Forest sounds. Rustling leaves, distant water, animals combined and distorted in ways that sometimes resembled human speech. Most disturbing was the discovery that certain frequencies, particularly those created by wind passing through the rock formation, fell into the range of infrasound, sounds below human hearing threshold, known to cause anxiety, paranoia, and even hallucinations in sensitive individuals. The Suttons were camping in a natural infrasound generator, the lead engineer concluded. Prolonged exposure, combined with the other acoustic anomalies, sleep deprivation, and David's pre-existing condition, it would be the perfect psychological storm. Laura finished. "And the children?" Michael asked, thinking of Tyler's reported calmness amid the growing madness. "Children's brains are more adaptable," the engineer explained. "They might interpret the phenomena differently, not as threatening voices, but as something else entirely." On the fifth day, while examining fallen trees near the ravine where David's backpack was found, a search officer discovered something scratched into bark. "The Peens speak truth, family lies." The handwriting matched samples from Sarah's journal, a chilling indication of how far her mental state had deteriorated. As evening approached, Michael and Laura agreed to conduct one final test with the search team's audio equipment. They recorded the acoustic phenomena around the needle during the transition from day to night, when temperature changes created the most pronounced effects. As darkness fell, they played back the recordings. Most contained only the expected natural sounds, distorted but identifiable. Then, in the final recording, clearly audible above the background noise, a child's voice, singing what sounded like a lullaby, and behind it, almost too faint to detect, a woman's voice, "Shh, they'll find us." The timestamp showed it had been recorded 30 minutes earlier. Not 7 months ago. Today. "There's someone still out there," Michael whispered, staring into the darkening forest where the needle stood against the twilight sky like an accusing finger. Someone survived. The discovery that someone might have survived transformed the investigation. Dawn brought additional search teams, cadaver dogs, and thermal imaging equipment. If someone's been living in these woods for 7 months, they've developed patterns, Laura said, coordinating the expanded search. Water sources, shelter locations, food gathering routes. Michael nodded. And if it's one of the children, they wouldn't have gone far from familiar landmarks. Rain had washed away most scents, frustrating the tracking dogs, but the thermal imaging revealed something unexpected, a series of small caves in the rock formation surrounding the needle, invisible from ground level but potentially accessible to someone small and agile. While rappelling equipment was brought in to explore the caves, Michael and a forensic anthropologist examined the recovered journals and drawings more carefully. Children's artwork often reveals psychological states adults try to hide, Dr. Winters explained, laying out Tyler's drawings in chronological order. The earliest ones show a normal, happy family. But look at this progression. She pointed to subtle changes. The family members drawn progressively farther apart. The forest encroaching with each picture. Trees that began as simple brown trunks with green tops gradually developed faces, eyes watching from between branches. The most disturbing change occurred in drawings after David and Emma disappeared. The remaining family members were depicted with strange, shadowy figures standing behind them, and baby Lily, initially drawn as a simple bundle, began appearing with an unusually detailed face, eyes too large and aware for an infant. The child was processing trauma through art, Dr. Winters said. But there's something else happening here. These later drawings show awareness of spatial relationships and perspective well beyond what we'd expect from a 3-year-old. Either Tyler was unusually gifted, or someone else was drawing these. Laura finished. Just before noon, the team exploring the caves made a breathtaking discovery. One cave contained a small blue blanket, Lily's baby blanket, relatively clean and recently used. "This wasn't here for months," the team leader reported. "Maybe weeks at most. No significant dirt accumulation or weather damage." The search intensified around the cave system. Thermal imaging drones detected a small heat signature moving between the caves and the densely wooded area beyond. The signature was too small to be an adult, too large to be most forest animals. With the potential of a surviving child, the approach changed. Child psychologists advised against a direct confrontation that might frighten someone who had adapted to wilderness living. If a child has survived this long in these conditions, they've developed a profound fear of strangers, explained Dr. Marshall, the lead psychologist. Especially if they witness the deterioration of their family members' mental states, they may believe the outside world is dangerous, that the forest protected them while humans brought harm. They established an observation post near the most recently used cave, leaving food, clean clothing, and photographs of the Sutton family in places visible from hiding spots. Each morning they found the food taken, the photos untouched. On the third day of this approach, a motion-activated camera captured a brief glimpse of a small figure darting between trees, a child with long matted hair wearing what appeared to be layers of tattered clothing. The image was blurry but unmistakably human. While the search continued, Laura interviewed a former colleague of David's who provided crucial context. David wasn't just fired, he was escorted out by security. He'd become convinced the company's ventilation system was pumping mind-altering chemicals into his office. When they sent him for psychiatric evaluation, he refused treatment, claiming the doctors were part of the conspiracy. Was there any basis to his claims? Laura asked. No, but David worked in pharmaceutical research. He understood how certain compounds affect brain chemistry. After his break, he became obsessed with natural substances that alter perception. His internet search history showed research into environments that induce hallucinatory states. He chose Area 17 deliberately, Michael realized, not to escape the voices, to find their source. That evening, while reviewing Sarah's final journal entries, Michael discovered pages stuck together. Carefully separating them revealed entries he'd missed. Day 8. Tyler knows where Emma went, says she's listening to the rocks now. He took me to the ravine edge. There was blood. I called for her, but only echoes came back, distorted like someone mocking me. Tyler wasn't afraid, said Emma hears better now. Day 10. I cannot leave. The forest shifts when I try to find the trail back. Paths that should go straight circle around. Tyler says we need to stay until we learn to listen properly. The baby has stopped crying entirely. She watches the trees with too much understanding for an infant. The final entry was barely legible. The handwriting degraded to frantic scribbles. The pines speak truth. Family lies. David knew. He brought us here to listen, but only the children can hear properly. Adults break when the forest speaks. Tyler says, I'll understand soon. Says I need to be quiet and let the whispers in. Using advanced audio equipment calibrated to detect the full range of sounds around the needle, including infrasound, the engineers made a startling discovery. At certain times of day, particularly dawn and dusk, the acoustic phenomena intensified dramatically. The rock formation channeled sounds from miles away into specific locations, including the exact spot where the Suttons had pitched their tent. It's like sitting in the focal point of a massive parabolic dish, the lead engineer explained. At night, when the air temperature changes and sound travels differently, it would be like hearing 1,000 whispers from all directions at once, for someone already prone to auditory hallucinations. That night, Michael and Laura conducted their most ambitious experiment yet. They set up a ring of speakers around the needle, playing recordings of Sarah's voice at low volume, hoping to draw out any surviving family member. They waited in the observation post, monitoring cameras and thermal imaging displays. Hours passed with no activity. Then, just after midnight, the thermal imaging showed movement, a small figure approaching one of the speakers, pausing to listen. The night vision cameras captured a child-sized silhouette reaching out to touch the speaker, playing Sarah's voice. Beside Michael, the audio technician suddenly grabbed his headphones. "We're picking up something," a voice responding to the recordings. Through the speakers came the unmistakable sound of a young child's voice. "Mommy's with the trees now." In the thermal imaging display, the small figure turned, seeming to look directly at the hidden observation post. Then it bolted into the darkness, moving with the speed and agility of someone intimately familiar with the terrain. Behind it, barely visible at the edge of the camera's range, a larger heat signature moved, following the child. Not human-shaped, but something elongated and indistinct, like a shadow detached from its owner. The team erupted into activity, but by the time they reached the location, both figures had vanished. All that remained was a small handprint in the mud next to the speaker, fresh and unmistakably human. And beside it, pressed into the earth, baby Lily's tiny footprint. The breakthrough came unexpectedly on the 7th day of the expanded search. A hiker not connected to the investigation reported seeing a small child watching him from behind trees approximately 2 miles from Area 17. "I thought it was a deer at first," the hiker told park rangers. "Then I realized it was a little kid dirty, with wild hair. When I called out, they ran deeper into the woods, moved like they knew exactly where they were going." The report shifted attention to an unexplored sector north of the Needle. Searchers found a series of small shelters there, progressively more sophisticated, evidence of someone learning survival skills over time. The most recent shelter contained fresh signs of habitation, a bed made of pine boughs, fruit pits, and a collection of useful items clearly gathered from the original campsite. More disturbing was the discovery of a sort of shrine, family photographs arranged in a circle with the adults' faces scratched out. In the center lay items belonging to each family member: David's watch, Emma's hair ribbon, Tyler's toy dinosaur, and what appeared to be Sarah's wedding ring. "It's almost ceremonial," said Dr. Winters, examining the arrangement. "Like someone trying to maintain connection to family while also separating from them." Searching David's recovered backpack more thoroughly, they found a waterproof notebook containing his own scattered writings. Unlike Sarah's sequential journal, David's notes were fragmented observations and theories. The needle amplifies and distorts, not random. Patterns in the chaos. Need more time to understand. Emma hears it too now. Says it sounds like singing. Tyler understood from the beginning. Children's brains more receptive? Infrasound causes fear, paranoia, visual hallucinations. Natural phenomenon or deliberate construction? Rock formation too perfectly arranged. Native legends about whispering stones that drive visitors mad. Early settlers reported hearing deceased loved ones calling from the forest. Not superstition. Science we don't yet understand. Most disturbing was the discovery that David had specifically researched Area 17 before their trip. He had downloaded geological surveys, historical reports of strange occurrences, and scientific papers on acoustic anomalies and their psychological effects. "He brought his family here deliberately," Laura said, reading through his notes. "Not for vacation, for experimentation." "He was looking for external validation of the voices he was already hearing," Michael suggested, "trying to prove he wasn't crazy. And instead, he exposed his entire family to the same phenomena that was tormenting him." Analyzing Sarah's handwriting in her final journal entries revealed degradation consistent with severe psychological distress or possible physical illness, perhaps dehydration or malnutrition as her mental state deteriorated. Park records revealed a disturbing pattern. Over the past 30 years, there had been 3 other missing persons cases connected to Area 17, all families with young children, all during periods of personal crisis. None had been solved. As evening approached on the 8th day, Laura proposed a bold strategy. If someone has survived this long, they've adapted to wilderness living. Direct pursuit hasn't worked. Let's try something else. Following the psychologist's advice, they set up a long-term observation post disguised as a standard campsite. 2 officers trained in child trauma would maintain a visible, non-threatening presence while operating recording equipment. If it's one of the children, "They've been watching us," Laura explained. "They know how searches work." But an ordinary-looking camp might draw their curiosity. That night, while monitoring from a distance, the gamble paid off. The thermal cameras captured a small figure approaching the disguised campsite, observing from the tree line. The officers remained in their tent, following instructions not to acknowledge the presence unless approached directly. Their recording equipment captured sounds too soft for human ears: quiet breathing, the rustle of movement through underbrush. Then, clearly audible in the still night air, a child's voice singing what sounded like a lullaby. The melody was eerily similar to the distorted sounds David had recorded from the Needle Rock Formation. When the officers played back Sarah's voice recording again, softly asking, "Is anyone there? We want to help you," the response came immediately, closer than before. "Mommy said not to talk to people. People break when they hear too much." The officers maintained their calm presence, continuing to talk soothingly about safety and help. After nearly an hour of this gentle coaxing, a rustling sound came from directly beside the tent. The thermal imaging showed the small figure had approached within feet of the tent. The officers resisted the urge to look outside. Then a child's hand pushed something under the tent flap, a folded piece of paper. On it was a crude map drawn in crayon, showing the needle, the caves, and a location marked with an X. Below the map, written in a child's uneven handwriting, "Lily is hungry. Tyler shows her where food is, but Tyler says the dark is coming soon." Child psychologist Dr. Marshall joined the team as they strategized their approach to the potentially traumatized survivors. If Tyler has been caring for Lily all these months, he's developed a profound sense of responsibility. Don't threaten that bond. And remember, he may have developed unusual beliefs about what happened to his family. They established a consistent routine at the observation camp, creating a sense of predictability. Each day they left food, clean clothing, and toys at the edge of the clearing. Each night, items would be taken. Gradually, the unseen observer grew bolder. Toys left in specific arrangements would be rearranged into patterns. Food left with certain utensils would be eaten, the utensils returned in perfect alignment. Communication progressed through drawings exchanged under the tent flap. The child's drawings showed increasing trust, scenes of the tent with smiling stick figures, images of hands reaching out to other hands. Michael, meanwhile, continued investigating the historical context of Area 17. In the park's archives, he discovered newspaper clippings from 1887 describing the disappearance of a settler family near what would later be designated Area 17. The parents were found frozen to death during winter, but their children's bodies were never recovered. Local rumors claimed the children could sometimes be heard singing in the forest during storms. More recently, scientific studies in the 1980s had briefly examined the acoustic properties of the Needle Formation. The research was suddenly discontinued, the area temporarily closed, then reopened with no explanation or published findings. Michael connected these historical incidents with his ongoing research into unusual animal behavior in the area. Animals avoid certain sections around the needle, particularly during dawn and dusk when the acoustic phenomena are strongest. They've adapted naturally to avoid something humans don't instinctively recognize as dangerous, sound that can't be heard but can be felt. On the 10th night, they left a battery-powered lantern at the edge of the camp, along with warm soup in a thermos and a stuffed bear wearing clothes, matching those in the Sutton family photo. The thermal imaging captured what they'd been waiting for. The small figure approached the lantern, the heat signature revealing a child's form. For nearly 10 minutes, the child sat just beyond the circle of light, watching the tent. Then, faintly picked up by the directional microphones, "Is it safe now?" Dr. Marshall, who had been waiting inside the tent, responded calmly, "Yes, Tyler, it's safe. We want to help you and Lily." Silence stretched for several minutes. Then rustling sounds approached the tent. The forest doesn't like too many people, the child's voice said. It gets loud when there are too many people.
It's just me, Dr. Marshall assured him.
My name is Dr. Marshall. I help children who have been through scary things. The tent flap moved, and a face appeared. A boy, perhaps 4 years old now, with matted hair and dirt-streaked skin. His eyes, however, were clear and alert, showing none of the wild fear they had expected. "Tyler," Dr. Marshall said gently, "you've been very brave. Is Lily with you?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. "She's sleeping in the safe place. She's little. She needs lots of sleep. Can you take us to her?" Tyler considered this, head tilted as if listening to something. "The forest is quiet now. It's safe to go." Over the radio, Laura instructed the backup teams to maintain complete silence and distance. "We follow the child's lead. No sudden movements, no surrounding, no helicopters, nothing that might trigger fear." Tyler led Dr. Marshall and Michael along a winding path that seemed deliberately circuitous, doubling back and crossing streams multiple times as if to confuse followers. He moved with absolute confidence through the darkness, occasionally stopping to listen to sounds inaudible to the adults. Finally, they arrived at a small cave entrance, concealed behind a fallen tree. "Lily's in here," Tyler said. "She's little, but she's smart. She knows how to be quiet when the forest is loud." Inside, illuminated by Michael's flashlight, they found an 18-month-old child, impossibly, miraculously alive, sleeping on a bed of clothing and the blue baby blanket they'd found earlier. Around her, arranged in a protective circle, were items from each family member, as if keeping watch. "Tyler," Michael asked gently, "what happened to your mom and dad?" The boy's expression remained eerily calm as he pointed toward the needle, visible through the trees in the moonlight. "They listened too hard," he said simply. "They broke when they heard what the forest was saying." The rescue of Tyler and Lily Sutton made national headlines, a miracle in an otherwise tragic story. Both children were hospitalized for malnutrition and exposure, but their physical conditions were remarkably good considering their 7 months in the wilderness. "It's unprecedented," the pediatrician told Laura and Michael. A 3-year-old caring for an infant in wilderness conditions through summer heat and the beginning of winter. By all medical understanding, they shouldn't have survived. The psychological evaluation was more complicated. Lily, too young to remember her ordeal, responded to treatment like any normal infant. Tyler, however, presented a unique challenge. "He's not displaying typical trauma responses," Dr. Marshall explained after several sessions. "No night terrors, no separation anxiety. Instead, he shows an unusual attunement to his environment. He notices things most children wouldn't, particularly sounds. And he has a system of beliefs about what happened that's both coherent and disturbing." Tyler's account, pieced together through play therapy and drawings, described how the forest voices affected each family member differently. David became frightened and angry, taking Emma to find who was saying bad things about him. Sarah became confused, sometimes talking to trees as if they were people. Only Tyler, he claimed, understood that the voices weren't people but the forest learning to talk. "He believes the forest was trying to communicate," Dr. Marshall said, "and that his father and Emma went to listen better at the needle, but broken because adults can't hear right." The storm came the day after the children's rescue, a violent November system that dropped 6 inches of rain in 12 hours. Michael and Laura had planned one final search of the area with cadaver dogs, hoping to locate the remains of the missing family members. Instead, they found themselves trapped when flooding cut off the access roads. With the command center 2 miles from Area 17, they made the decision to seek shelter in the cave system where Tyler and Lily had been living. "We have 12 hours until the roads are passable again," Laura said, checking their emergency supplies. "Might as well use the time to document the site properly." The cave was larger than it had appeared when they recovered the children, a series of interconnected chambers extending deep into the hillside. Tyler had created an ingenious living space, with separate areas for sleeping, food storage, and what appeared to be a play area for Lily. Most disturbing was what they found in the deepest chamber, hundreds of drawings covering the walls, documenting the family's disintegration in crude but chronological detail. "It's like a visual diary," Michael said, photographing the sequential images. Tyler was recording what happened to each family member. The drawings showed David and Emma walking toward the needle. Later images depicted them at the ravine edge, with jagged lines suggesting falling. Sarah was shown sitting alone by the tent, then walking into the forest, then lying very still under a tree with her eyes open. "He documented their deaths," Laura whispered, "a child witnessing his entire family." The final wall contained the most disturbing sequence, drawings of Tyler carrying Lily through the forest, hiding from larger figures with distorted faces. Above them all, the needle was always present, radiating jagged lines like sound waves. As evening approached, the storm intensified. Wind howled through the cave entrance, creating eerie whistle-like sounds as it passed through the narrow opening. "We should move deeper in," Michael suggested. "That sound will drive us crazy all night." They set up their emergency camp in Tyler's former living area, using their portable lighting to keep the darkness at bay. As night fell, the sounds outside changed character, no longer just wind and rain, but complex patterns that rose and fell like distant conversations. "It's exactly what David described in his recordings," Laura said, listening intently. "It really does sound like whispers." "It's just wind through the rock formations," Michael reassured her. "The acoustics out there are strange, especially during storms." But as hours passed, the sounds became increasingly difficult to dismiss. Patterns emerged that seemed almost linguistic, rises and falls, pauses and bursts that mimicked human speech. Both found themselves straining to make out words that seemed just beyond comprehension. "We should record this," Laura said, setting up her phone. The recording captured something neither of them noticed in real time. When played back, beneath the wind and rain, a rhythmic humming could be heard, the same lullaby Tyler had been singing when they found him. Around midnight, during a brief lull in the storm, they heard something that made them both freeze, the clear sound of footsteps approaching the cave entrance. Not animal movements, but the deliberate tread of someone walking upright. "Park rescue?" Laura called out, reaching for her sidearm. No response came, but the footsteps continued, now inside the cave entrance. Their flashlights revealed nothing in the outer chamber. "We should investigate," Michael said, though every instinct told him to stay put. They moved cautiously toward the cave entrance, flashlights scanning the darkness. The footsteps had stopped, but a new sound replaced them, breathing, soft but unmistakable, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "It's the wind," Laura said firmly. "Just the wind through the rocks." But when they reached the cave entrance, what they found defied rational explanation. The storm had uncovered something half buried in mud near the entrance. Sarah Sutton's remains, preserved by the cold and dry cave environment. She was seated upright against the rock wall, her arms positioned as if cradling something. "Jesus," Michael whispered, instinctively stepping back. She made it to the cave. She was trying to protect the children. Laura knelt beside the remains. "Look at her expression. She doesn't look frightened or in pain. She looks..." As they radioed in their discovery, the storm briefly knocked out their communications. In that moment of isolation, with only emergency lights pushing back the darkness, the acoustics in the cave changed dramatically. The wind through the entrance created a sustained, pulsing sound that resonated at a frequency they felt rather than heard, a deep vibration that seemed to press against their eardrums. Infrasound, Michael realized. It's exactly what the engineers detected at the needle. For nearly an hour, they endured the disorienting effects. A sense of pressure, mild nausea, and most disturbingly, the growing certainty that they weren't alone. Shadows seemed to move at the corners of their vision. Sounds separated into distinct whispers that almost formed words. "I understand now," Laura said suddenly, her voice unnaturally calm. "What Tyler meant about listening wrong." Michael felt it too. A strange clarity emerging from the disorientation. The longer they listened, the more patterns emerged from the chaos. Not language as humans understood it, but something more primitive and direct, emotional states conveyed through sound, images forming in the mind in response to acoustic stimulation.
"It's not voices,"
Michael said. "It's just one voice." When rescuers reached them the following morning, they found Michael and Laura sitting calmly in the cave, surrounded by Sarah's drawings, which they had reorganized into a pattern that made sense only to them. Medical examination showed both were suffering from the early stages of auditory hallucinations brought on by extended exposure to infrasound, sleep deprivation, and the psychological impact of their discovery. Within days after proper rest and distance from Area 17, their symptoms subsided, but both were left with the unshakable memory of that night when the line between natural phenomena and something else had momentarily blurred. The final pieces of the puzzle came together when the floodwaters receded enough to search the ravine where David's backpack had been found. The area had been transformed by the storm, revealing what water and time had previously concealed: human remains caught in a rock crevice halfway down the cliff face. Forensic examination confirmed they belonged to David and Emma Sutton. The evidence suggested David had fallen first, with Emma either falling or climbing down to help him. They had died quickly from severe injuries, according to the medical examiner. But the position of their remains told a different story than a simple accident. They were found facing the needle, Emma cradled in David's arms, as if they had deliberately positioned themselves to watch or listen until the end. Tyler, now safe in foster care, had one final revelation during a therapy session. Drawing a picture of his family beneath the needle, he explained in his simple, direct way, "Daddy brought us there to hear better." He said the medicine doctors gave him made it hard to hear the important things. Emma heard it first, after Daddy. Mommy heard it last. Lily was too little to understand the words, but she could feel them.
What words, Tyler?
Dr. Marshall asked gently. Tyler tilted his head, as if listening to a distant sound. His hand moved across the paper, drawing sound waves emanating from the needle. "The true things," he said. "The things people forget when they grow up. The forest remembers everything. It was just trying to remind us." 3 months after the discovery of the Sutton family's fate, Whispering Pines National Park permanently closed Area 17 to the public. Official reports cited unstable geological formations and hazardous acoustic conditions without elaborating further. Scientific papers documented the unique infrasound properties of the needle formation, cautioning about potential psychological effects of prolonged exposure. Tyler and Lily Sutton were placed with Sarah's sister and her husband, experienced foster parents equipped to handle their unique needs. Lily, still too young to remember her ordeal, developed normally. Tyler's progress was more complex, but hopeful. "He's integrating the experience in remarkable ways," Dr. Marshall reported. "Rather than suppressing the trauma, he's incorporating it into his understanding of the world without being defined by it." Tyler gradually stopped talking about forest voices as he readapted to normal life, though his foster parents noted he still sometimes paused mid-activity, head tilted, as if listening to something no one else could hear. His therapist found healthy ways to channel his unusual sensory sensitivity, encouraging music therapy and nature sounds as comfort measures. His exceptional spatial awareness and memory, skills that had kept him and Lily alive, found positive outlets in art and structured outdoor activities. The case changed park safety protocols nationwide. Rangers received additional training in recognizing signs of psychological distress in visitors. Family campsites were relocated away from areas with unusual acoustic properties. Warning signs now advised against extended stays in certain locations. For Michael Reed, the case left permanent marks. He developed a university extension course on wilderness safety that included psychological components. His research into environmental factors affecting human perception continued, now with official support. The Sutton case wasn't supernatural, he would tell his students. It was a perfect storm of natural phenomena, pre-existing vulnerabilities, isolation, and family dynamics. But it reminds us how thin the line can be between perception and reality, how the human mind can be its own wilderness. Laura Simmons specialized in cases involving children and wilderness survival, her experience with Tyler informing new search and rescue approaches for traumatized young survivors. 1 year after the tragedy, Michael made a final visit to Area 17, now ringed with fencing and warning signs. The morning was clear, the forest peaceful. At the former campsite, he placed a small stone marker he'd created with Tyler's help during a therapy session, a simple remembrance for a family who came seeking healing and found something else entirely. As he turned to leave, a sudden breeze moved through the towering pines. For just a moment, the overlapping sounds of wind through needles, distant water, and rustling leaves combined to create what almost sounded like a family's laughter, parents and children sharing a moment of perfect joy. Then silence returned to the forest, broken only by Michael's footsteps as he walked away, leaving Area 17 to its whispers and its secrets. Some places, he had learned, speak in voices few can hear and fewer should listen for, but the forest remembers everything. Patient as stone, enduring as echo, waiting for those who know how to listen. That's the end of the story. If you were trapped in those woods, do you think you could have survived like Tyler did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit subscribe for more captivating tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now check out our next spine-tingling story.